Now, the Christmas Promise trilogy. Stories created using ChatGPT. AI audio by ElevenReader. The Christmas Promise by John Seal Jr. Dedication for all who still believe. Act 1, The Promise begins. Snow drifted down over the small Virginia town of Maple Hollow, painting every roof and lamppost in white. The streets shimmered beneath the golden glow of Christmas lights, and the sound of carolers floated through the cold air. Families hurried along the sidewalks, arms full of gifts and laughter. But in a quiet corner of the town square, Daniel Mercer sat in his car, engine idling, watching it all through a fogged windshield. His phone glowed in his hand, lighting the tired lines of his face. I know, he said into the receiver. The bid has to go out before midnight. Yes, I'll send it from the hotel. He ended the call, exhaling slowly. Across the street, the old school auditorium stood bright and full of life. A banner over the door read, Christmas Pageant. Tonight! Through the frosted glass, Daniel caught sight of his daughter, Emma, dressed as an angel. She was scanning the audience, eyes wide with hope. For a long moment, Daniel hesitated. Then, with a weary sigh, he started the car and drove away. Inside the auditorium, the pageant began. Parents beamed with pride, cameras flashing as children sang. In the front row, an empty seat sat waiting, a card taped to it with neat handwriting. Reserved for Daniel Mercer. Emma's smile faltered, but she sang anyway, voice trembling with effort. By the time the curtain fell, Daniel was halfway across town, the headlights of his car cutting through the snow. His phone buzzed again. Work. Always work. He answered, distracted, and didn't see the patch of ice ahead. The car slid sideways, spinning until it slammed into a snowbank with a dull thud. Silence. Daniel sat for a moment, breathing hard, then got out to inspect the damage. His breath rose in white clouds. The air bit at his skin. He looked at his phone. No signal. But through the swirling snow, he noticed a faint light up ahead. A small garage. He trudged toward it, boots crunching through the frost. The garage door creaked as he pushed it open. Inside, the warm hum of a space heater filled the air. Tools hung neatly on the walls. A man in his 60s looked up from his workbench, silver-haired, eyes bright beneath weathered brows. Evening, friend, the man said with a kind smile. Car trouble? Daniel nodded. Yeah, bad timing. Christmas Eve's never bad timing, the man replied, wiping his hands. Only good lessons hiding in it. He extended a hand. Name's Gabriel. Daniel accepted the handshake, the man's grip firm but gentle. Come on in, Gabriel said. You look frozen. Coffee's hot. Daniel hesitated, then followed him inside. The small garage smelled of motor oil and pine. A radio played a soft instrumental carol. Gabriel poured 2 steaming cups of coffee and handed one to Daniel, who sat near the heater, letting the warmth thaw his fingers. You've got someone waiting for you tonight? Gabriel asked. My daughter, Daniel admitted. Pageant, I missed it. Gabriel nodded knowingly. Kids remember 2 things in life, when you were there and when you weren't. Daniel stared down at his coffee. Yeah, I'm starting to figure that out. Gabriel leaned over an open hood. Tell you what, help me finish this old engine, and I'll have you back on the road before midnight. Daniel looked up. You serious? Gabriel smiled. Always am. Daniel put down his phone, picked up a wrench, and joined him. As they worked, conversation came easy. Daniel talked about his job, his divorce, the way Christmas had lost its meaning somewhere along the way. Gabriel listened, nodding, the calm of his presence filling the room. Maybe Christmas isn't about feeling, Gabriel said finally. It's about remembering. Daniel thought about that as they tightened the final bolt. The car engine sputtered, then roared to life. "How much do I owe you?" Daniel asked. Gabriel waved a hand. "Call it even. Just keep a promise tonight." Daniel frowned. "What promise?" Gabriel only smiled. "You'll know which one when the time comes." Daniel stepped out into the snow, still confused. When he turned to thank him again, the garage light flickered, and Gabriel was gone. Back home, the tree glowed softly in the darkened living room. Emma had fallen asleep on the couch, her angel wings resting beside her. A plate of cookies sat on the table, next to a note scrawled in marker. "Maybe next year you can see me fly." Daniel knelt beside her, tears stinging his eyes. "I promise," he whispered. "Next year, I'll be there. Always." Outside, the snow fell quietly, blanketing the town in peace. And though Daniel didn't see it, a faint light shimmered just beyond the window, like the reflection of a watchful smile. Act 2. The Test of Faith. A full year had passed since that snowy night in Maple Hollow. The town once again shimmered under the soft glow of Christmas lights, every window draped with garland and hope. But inside Daniel Mercer's home, the glow was dimmer. He sat at the kitchen table, a mug of coffee going cold beside him, his laptop open to a mess of architectural drawings. The hum of the furnace filled the silence. On the refrigerator, a child's crayon drawing hung crookedly me and Daddy at the pageant. The stick-figure girl wore angel wings, smiling beside a tall man holding her hand. "Daddy," Emma said softly, padding into the kitchen in her slippers, "are you coming to my show tonight?" Daniel looked up, caught off guard. She was older now, a little taller, her hair a bit longer, but her eyes were still the same. He smiled faintly. "Wouldn't miss it for the world." She tilted her head. "Promise?" His heart twinged. "Promise," he said, even though a part of him already feared it might be another lie. Emma grinned and hurried off to get ready for school, humming a carol under her breath. When the door closed behind her, Daniel exhaled and rubbed his temples. Promises were easy in the morning light. Keeping them when the world started pulling again, that was harder. By afternoon, the office windows glowed with city light. Phones rang, keyboards clacked, and the hum of ambition filled every cubicle. Daniel's boss, Margaret, strode into his office, her heels clicking like a metronome. "Daniel," she said briskly, "we landed the Fairfax contract. They want revisions by tonight." He froze. "Tonight? It's Christmas Eve." "Clients don't take holidays," she replied, already turning toward the door. "Neither do we." She was gone before he could protest. He looked at the clock. 6 p.m. The pageant started at 7:30. He could still make it if he worked fast. He opened his laptop, fingers flying, trying to drown out the voice inside him whispering, "Go home." The phone rang again. It was Emma. Her picture flashed on the screen, smiling, her halo askew from dress rehearsal. He silenced the call. A moment later, a soft knock came at the door. "Long night." Daniel turned. An older janitor stood there, mop in hand, his face half lit by the glow of the hallway. Something about him was familiar. "Yeah," Daniel said slowly. "Work emergency." The janitor smiled faintly. "Funny thing, emergencies. They make us forget what's worth saving. Daniel blinked. The man's eyes glimmered calm, kind, and knowing. You ever think, the man added, maybe the work will wait, but the moment won't. Daniel set his pen down. His heart pounded with recognition. Gabriel! But the man was already pushing his cart down the hall, humming softly. When Daniel stepped out to follow him, the hallway was empty. By 7:15, Daniel was in his car, snow swirling around the windshield. He gripped the steering wheel and prayed he wouldn't be too late. The roads were slick, the world white and glowing. A figure appeared in the storm ahead, waving a flashlight. Daniel slowed, rolling down his window. It was Gabriel, standing beside a stranded car. Road slick, Gabriel said with a calm smile. Take the bridge instead. Shorter, safer. Daniel blinked, ready to say something, but when he looked again, the man was gone. The bridge loomed ahead, dusted with snow. Below, the river was frozen solid, its icy surface reflecting the distant lights of town. Daniel stopped in the middle, headlights cutting through the fog. He got out and leaned against the railing, breathing heavily. The guilt hit him all at once, every missed promise, every Christmas gone wrong. You kept your promise once, came a voice behind him. You can keep it again. Daniel turned. Gabriel stood there, no longer dressed as a janitor, but in his old denim jacket, snowflakes clinging to his silver hair. You're not just some mechanic, are you? Daniel whispered. Gabriel smiled. Labels don't matter much where I come from. What matters is down here love, forgiveness, belief. Don't let them freeze like this river. It's too late, Daniel said hoarsely. She thinks I don't care. Then show her, Gabriel said. Go home. Start now. He placed a hand on Daniel's shoulder. It was warm, impossibly warm. One promise can still be kept tonight. Daniel nodded, tears stinging his eyes. When he looked up again, Gabriel was gone. Back in town, the church bells rang faintly through the storm. Daniel pushed the car to its limits. Snow lashed against the windshield, tires sliding on every turn. By the time he reached the school, the lights inside were dimming. He ran up the steps, breath steaming in the cold, and burst through the doors just as the children began their final song. The auditorium was full. Families clapping, flashes of cameras, the smell of pine and cookies. On stage, Emma stepped forward for her solo. For a moment, she hesitated. Then she saw him. Her eyes widened. A slow smile spread across her face. Daniel stood in the back, hands trembling, tears shining in his eyes. He mouthed the words, I'm here. Her voice lifted, clear and radiant, filling the room with music. And for the first time in years, Daniel felt something thaw inside him. Faith didn't always arrive with miracles. Sometimes it was simpler than that. A father standing in the snow, keeping his word at last. Act 3. The light returns. The storm passed overnight, leaving Maple Hollow glistening under a sky of silver and gold. The morning sun painted the snow in hues of rose and amber, and for the first time in years, Daniel Mercer awoke with peace in his heart. He stood at the window, watching the town come alive. The smell of coffee filled the kitchen. Emma's laughter echoed from the living room as she unwrapped the first gift beneath the tree, a snow globe with a tiny angel inside. Look, Daddy, she said, shaking it gently. It's just like the one at school. Daniel smiled. It's beautiful, sweetheart. She looked up at him with the unguarded trust only a child could have. I'm glad you came last night. His throat tightened. Me too. Later that morning, as the town gathered for the annual Christmas parade, the streets sparkled with garland and joy. Brass bands marched, playing carols that floated over the rooftops. Daniel and Emma walked hand in hand, weaving through the crowd. The world looked different now, brighter somehow. Every face seemed kinder, every laugh warmer. They stopped at the edge of the square where the parade would pass. Daniel turned and caught sight of the small garage, in the distance Gabriel's garage. The same light glowed from within. "Mind if we make a quick stop?" he asked. Emma nodded eagerly. They crossed the street, boots crunching on the frost, and stepped inside. The same tools hung neatly on the wall. The same heater hummed softly in the corner. But the workbench was empty except for a single item, a small brass keychain shaped like a snowflake. Daniel picked it up. The metal was warm to the touch, faintly glowing in his palm. Emma watched him curiously. "What's that?" He smiled. "A reminder." "Of what?" He looked down at her and squeezed her hand. "That promises matter." She nodded solemnly, though she didn't fully understand. He slipped the snowflake into his pocket, feeling its warmth against his heart. By evening, the square was alive again for the annual tree lighting. The mayor stood on the bandstand, bundled in his thick coat, smiling as he spoke into the microphone. "Every year," he said, "we light this tree as a symbol of hope, love, and community. But this year, we have a special guest to help us. Please welcome our Christmas angel, Emma Mercer." The crowd cheered as Emma stepped forward, cheeks flushed with excitement. Daniel watched from the front, pride swelling in his chest. The mayor handed her a large brass switch. "Would you do us the honor?" Emma turned toward her father. "Together?" He nodded. Their hands clasped around the switch. They pressed down. The tree burst into 1,000 points of light, cascading across the snow like starlight. The crowd gasped and applauded. Children laughed. Bells rang. And for a moment, just a moment, the world felt perfect. Daniel looked across the street. There, near the shadow of the old clock tower, stood Gabriel. His denim jacket gleamed faintly in the glow of the tree. Their eyes met. Gabriel smiled, calm and knowing. Daniel mouthed, "Thank you." Gabriel nodded once, and then he was gone. That night, the Mercer home was filled with laughter. Friends dropped by with cookies and cocoa, the warmth of love and forgiveness radiating through every room. When the last guest left and the lights dimmed, Daniel sat by the window watching the snow fall. He held the brass snowflake in his hand, its glow fading softly but never entirely disappearing. He whispered, "Merry Christmas, Gabriel." Outside, a faint shimmer crossed the sky, a quiet reminder that some promises last forever. Epilogue. Every light tells a story. Some fade, some flicker, but the brightest ones, the ones made of love, never go out. And if you ever find yourself lost in the cold, look for the promise still shining inside you. It's there. It always was. The end. Coming up next, The Christmas Promise 2. The Christmas Promise 2 by John Seal Jr. Dedication for all who believe that forgiveness is the truest kind of promise. Act 1. The Return to Maple Hollow. The snow came early that year. By mid-December, Maple Hollow was already wrapped in white, the rooftops glistening beneath strings of golden lights. The town square buzzed with carolers and cocoa stands, and the old church bells sang every hour on the hour, a steady reminder that Christmas was coming. Daniel Mercer stood outside the cafe, watching his daughter Emma twirl in the snow. She was 9 now, taller, confident, and full of that same spark her mother used to have. A year had passed since Daniel's promise, and for once he'd kept it. He'd made every recital, every bedtime story, every Christmas memory she'd asked for. "Careful," he called. "You'll slip." Emma laughed, catching a snowflake on her mitten. "You always say that, Daddy, but you forget I'm an angel." He chuckled softly. "You sure are." She ran back to him and tugged his sleeve. "Can we get cocoa before the parade?" "Only if you promise to share the marshmallows." Emma grinned. "Deal." They stepped inside the cafe, shaking snow from their coats. The air smelled of cinnamon and roasted coffee. Familiar faces waved, neighbors, shopkeepers, old friends who'd seen Daniel's slow return to joy over the past year. But even as he smiled, Daniel's thoughts drifted to the letter waiting on his desk at home, the one he hadn't opened yet. That night, after Emma had fallen asleep beneath the glow of the Christmas tree, Daniel sat in his study. The house was quiet except for the ticking of the old mantel clock. The letter lay in front of him, the envelope worn and creased, his name scrawled in hurried ink. The return address read, Michael Mercer, Norfolk, Virginia, his brother. Daniel hadn't spoken to Michael in nearly a decade. Not since the night they'd argued over their father's inheritance, bitter words that tore them apart after their mother's funeral. He hesitated, fingers trembling, then tore open the envelope. "Dan, I don't expect forgiveness, but I need to see you. I'm coming to Maple Hollow for Christmas. There's something I have to make right." "Michael?" Daniel sat back, heart heavy. He hadn't realized until that moment how deeply he'd buried the past, how tightly he'd closed the door on everything before Emma was born. He stood, pacing by the window. Outside, the snow glowed under the street lamps. In the distance, the old church steeple shimmered faintly, and for a brief second, Daniel thought he saw a figure standing there, watching. A calm voice echoed in his memory. Christmas Eve's never bad timing, only good lessons hiding in it. "Gabriel." Daniel blinked, and the figure was gone. The next morning, Emma burst into his room, breathless with excitement. "Daddy, guess who I met at the train station?" He sat up, still half asleep. "Who?" She grinned. "A man with a hat and a suitcase. He said his name's Uncle Michael." Daniel froze. "He's here." "He said he wanted to surprise you," Emma said, already halfway down the hall. "He's waiting downstairs." Daniel took a long breath, straightened his shirt, and descended the staircase slowly. Michael stood by the doorway, dusting snow off his coat. Time had softened him, the same dark eyes, the same sharp jaw, but streaks of gray now lined his hair. "Hey, Dan," Michael said quietly. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The air between them was thick with things unsaid. Finally, Daniel nodded. "It's been a long time." Michael smiled faintly. "Too long." Act 2. The Bridge Between Brothers. For the first time in years, both Mercer brothers sat at the same kitchen table. The air was thick with silence, not the comfortable kind that comes from peace, but the fragile quiet that comes before hard words. Emma, oblivious to the tension, chattered happily as she stirred cocoa. "Daddy, Uncle Michael said he used to help you build snow forts when you were my age." Daniel forced a smile. "That's right. He was the best fort builder in town." Michael chuckled softly. "Until you knocked them down." They exchanged a quick glance, not quite a smile, not quite forgiveness, but something close. After breakfast, Emma bundled herself up to play outside, leaving the two men alone. Snowflakes drifted against the window, melting slowly into trails of water. Daniel cleared his throat. "So, Norfolk, you still working the docks?" Michael nodded. "Yeah, long hours, but it keeps me honest." A pause lingered. The clock ticked. "Why now, Mike?" Daniel finally asked. "After all this time." Michael leaned back, eyes tired. "Because Mom always said Christmas wasn't meant to last forever. It's meant to be shared before it fades. I guess I didn't understand what that meant until I didn't have anyone left to share it with." Daniel looked down, running a hand over the table's worn wood. The words were simple, but they landed heavy. "I made mistakes," Michael continued. "I was angry. At you, at Dad, at everything. I thought walking away would make it hurt less, but it didn't. It just made the years disappear." Daniel exhaled slowly. "You left when I needed you the most. I buried Dad alone. I raised Emma without a brother, without family. I told myself I'd forgiven you, but maybe I just stopped feeling anything at all." Michael nodded. "I know." The silence stretched again, but this time it wasn't empty. That evening, Daniel walked down to the church. The choir was rehearsing inside, their voices rising through the stained glass windows. He stood under the old steeple, listening. "Cold night," said a voice beside him. Daniel turned. A man in a heavy coat leaned against the lamppost, his breath misting in the air. The same silver hair, the same calm eyes. "Gabriel," Daniel said quietly. The man smiled. "Thought I'd check in on my favorite mechanic." Daniel shook his head with a small laugh. "You don't age a day. Neither do lessons that still need learning." Daniel crossed his arms. "You always show up when I'm in trouble." "Not trouble," Gabriel corrected. "Opportunity." Daniel sighed. He wants forgiveness. I want to give it, but I don't know how. Gabriel looked out toward the glowing church windows. "Forgiveness isn't something you give, Daniel. It's something you live. It's not about rewriting the past. It's about refusing to let it steal the future." Daniel nodded slowly. "And if I can't?" Gabriel smiled softly. "Then the promise ends with you. And I don't think that's why you were given it in the first place." The church bells chimed the hour. When Daniel looked back, Gabriel was gone, only a faint warmth in the air remained. That night, Michael found Daniel sitting by the fireplace. The flames danced in their reflection. Two brothers older now, both carrying the same quiet ache. "I saw Gabriel tonight," Daniel said. Michael's brow furrowed. "Gabriel." Daniel smiled faintly. "An old friend. He has a habit of showing up when things get messy." Michael leaned forward, hands clasped. "I didn't come here to ask you to forget. I came to ask you to remember the good parts before we let everything fall apart." Daniel stared into the fire. "You really mean that?" "I do." A long moment passed. Then Daniel nodded, the weight in his chest beginning to lift. "Then maybe we start there." Outside, the snow began again, soft, steady, and full of promise. Act 3. The Gift of Forgiveness. Christmas Eve dawned clear and bright. The storm had passed, leaving Maple Hollow washed in morning gold. The church bell rang softly over the rooftops, and the scent of pine drifted through the streets. Inside the Mercer home, the fire burned low. Emma sat at the table painting ornaments, little wooden angels, each one with a slightly crooked smile. Daniel and Michael worked quietly beside her, stringing popcorn garlands. "Daddy," Emma said suddenly, holding up an angel, "this one looks like Uncle Michael." Michael laughed. "That's because I've still got some angel left in me." Daniel smiled, and for the first time in a long while, it wasn't forced. The heaviness that had lingered between them was lifting like fog under the morning sun. After lunch, Emma ran outside to build a snowman, leaving the brothers alone once more. Michael leaned back in his chair. "You know," he said, "I used to think forgiveness was just saying sorry, but I think it's something bigger, like letting someone back into the part of your heart that hurt." Daniel nodded slowly. "You're right." He took a breath. "I've spent years being angry not just at you, but at myself, for letting everything fall apart. But Gabriel was right. Forgiveness isn't something you give. It's something you live." Michael smiled faintly. "You still talk to angels?" Daniel looked out the window where snow fell softly over the trees. "Sometimes they talk first." That evening, the whole town gathered once again in the square. The Christmas tree towered above them, covered in ribbons and stars. The mayor spoke warmly to the crowd, thanking the townsfolk for their kindness and unity. Emma stood on a small stool beside her father, a candle glowing in her mittened hands. Michael stood just behind them, smiling hesitant but hopeful. As the crowd began to sing Silent Night, Daniel glanced across the street. Near the old lamppost stood Gabriel. His denim jacket looked the same, his silver hair bright beneath the lights. He raised his hand in greeting. Daniel nodded, eyes misting. For a moment, the noise of the world faded, and it was just the two of them, the living and the eternal, sharing a quiet promise in the winter air. Gabriel smiled. "You've done well, Daniel. You've kept the promise." Daniel whispered under his breath, "Not alone." The angel's eyes softened. "You were never meant to." And then, like the snow itself, he was gone. Later that night, back at home, Daniel placed a single candle on the windowsill. Emma slept soundly beneath the twinkling lights of the tree. Michael sat nearby, humming an old carol their mother used to sing. Daniel looked out into the snow, the candlelight flickering gently against the glass. Every light tells a story, he thought. Some fade, some flicker, but the ones born from forgiveness, those never go out. He smiled, closed his eyes, and whispered, "Merry Christmas, Gabriel, and thank you." Outside, the stars burned brighter, and for a heartbeat, one seemed to fall across the sky, leaving a soft golden trail above Maple Hollow. Epilogue. A year later, the Mercer brothers opened a small repair shop together on the edge of town. They called it Gabriel's Garage, in memory of the stranger who had changed their lives forever. Every December, a brass snowflake hung in the window, always warm to the touch, no matter how cold the winter grew. And when Emma asked her father what it meant, Daniel only smiled and said, "It's a promise that forgiveness is the brightest light of all." The end. Coming up next, The Christmas Promise. 3. Faith Restored. The Christmas Promise. 3. Faith Restored by John Seal Jr. Dedication. For those who find light again even after the longest night. Act 1. The Light That Was Lost. Snow drifted softly over Maple Hollow, blanketing the small town in its familiar peace. But this winter, the lights seemed dimmer, the laughter quieter. The town had seen a hard year of factory closure, families moving away, and hearts growing weary beneath the weight of uncertainty. From his workshop window, Daniel Mercer watched as the first snow settled on the sign above the door. Gabriel's garage. The brass snowflake in the window still glowed faintly, but even it seemed to have lost some of its shimmer. He sighed and set down his wrench. "Feels different this year," he murmured. Behind him, his brother Michael looked up from a half-repaired snowblower. "You're telling me half the town's running on empty, and not just their gas tanks?" Daniel nodded. Emma's school canceled the Christmas play. Not enough money in the arts fund. Michael frowned. "That's the first time in 30 years. Yeah. Daniel rubbed his palms together, staring out at the street. Maple Hollow's always had more heart than it had money. But lately, I don't know. It's like everyone forgot how to believe." The door opened, and Emma stepped in, cheeks red from the cold. She was 13 now, her bright spirit tempered by the maturity of someone who'd seen grown-ups struggle, but still hoped things could change. "Dad," she said, holding up a flyer, "the mayor's canceling the tree lighting this year. Says the town can't afford it." Daniel blinked. "Canceling Christmas?" Michael took the flyer, reading aloud. "Due to limited resources and low attendance, Maple Hollow's annual Christmas Eve celebration will be postponed until next year." He tossed it onto the counter with a snort. "Postponed. That's a polite way of saying forgotten." Emma's eyes filled with tears. "It's not fair. Christmas isn't supposed to be canceled." Daniel knelt beside her, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "No, sweetheart, it's not." He looked at his brother. "Maybe it's time someone reminded this town what Christmas really means." Michael smiled faintly. "You thinking what I'm thinking?" Daniel grinned. "Yeah, but we might need a little help from above." That night, after closing the shop, Daniel walked to the church. Snow crunched beneath his boots, the air sharp and silent. Inside, the candles flickered weakly against the stained glass, casting pale halos of color across the pews. He sat down, folding his hands. "I don't even know where to start this time, Gabriel," he whispered. "The town's losing hope, and I don't know how to fix something that big." For a moment, there was only silence, and then, from the far end of the church, came a familiar voice. "Hope doesn't need fixing," it said gently. "It just needs remembering." Daniel turned. Standing beneath the cross was Gabriel, his coat dusted with snow, that same calm smile lighting his face. "Hello again, Daniel." Daniel exhaled a shaky laugh. "I was wondering when you'd show up." Gabriel walked forward, his footsteps echoing softly on the wood floor. "You've done well keeping promises. Now it's time to help others keep theirs." "The whole town?" Daniel asked. That's a lot of promises." Gabriel smiled. "One light can spark 1,000, Daniel. You just need to strike the match." Act 2. The Town That Forgot Christmas. The next morning, Maple Hollow woke beneath a dull gray sky, the kind of sky that made the world feel tired. Decorations hung half-lit in windows, the wreaths brittle with frost. Even the bakery, usually a haven of warmth and cinnamon, seemed quieter than usual. Daniel, Michael, and Emma met at the town square, bundled in scarves, holding a single strand of old Christmas lights. Michael frowned. "We're really doing this?" Daniel smiled faintly. "We're not waiting for the town to remember. We're reminding it." Emma's eyes sparkled. Gabriel said one light can spark 1,000. Let's start with one. They began stringing the lights around the bare branches of the maple tree at the center of the square. One by one, curious neighbors peeked through shop windows. Mrs. Palmer from the bakery stepped outside, wiping her hands on her apron. "What are you doing, Daniel?" she called. "Trying to bring a little Christmas back," he said with a grin. She laughed softly. "You'll need more than a few lights for that." "Maybe," Daniel replied. "But every light helps." Within an hour, more people joined. The postman brought extra extension cords. The high school kids gathered leftover tinsel from the storeroom. Even the mayor stopped by, hat in hand, looking uncertain. Emma handed him a bulb. "We saved this one for you." The mayor hesitated, then smiled and screwed it into place. When it clicked, the string of lights flickered weak at first, then steady, glowing bright against the gray sky. And for the first time in months, the square filled with laughter. That night, Daniel stood outside the church again. The candles inside burned brighter now. "You were right," he said softly. Gabriel appeared beside him, his breath forming no cloud in the cold. "I usually am." Daniel chuckled. "But it's just lights. The town still has a long way to go." Gabriel tilted his head. "Faith doesn't bloom in one night, Daniel. It grows in the hands that help others and the hearts that refuse to quit." He looked toward the square. "You've given them a spark. Now let them carry it." Daniel watched as townsfolk lingered in the glow of the lights, talking, sharing, smiling. The sound of laughter echoed down the snow-covered streets. "Will it last?" he asked. Gabriel smiled. "That depends on whether you believe it will." The next few days brought more change. The bakery reopened with free cookies for children. The church organized a toy drive. Emma and her friends turned the canceled Christmas play into a street performance, acting out the nativity under the stars. On Christmas Eve, the mayor returned to Daniel's shop with a clipboard in hand. "Daniel," he said, "we've decided to hold the tree lighting after all. Tonight. And we'd like you and your family to lead it." Daniel blinked. "You're serious?" The mayor grinned. "You reminded us what Christmas means. Seems only right you light it." That evening, as the square filled with families bundled in coats and scarves, Daniel looked around in quiet awe. The once faded lights now blazed in every window. The old brass band played again. Children threw snowballs, laughter ringing through the cold night air. And just before the ceremony began, Emma tugged on his sleeve. "Daddy," she whispered, pointing toward the church steps. "Look." There, standing in the falling snow, was Gabriel smiling, watching from the distance. Daniel's chest tightened with gratitude. He nodded once. "Let's light it." Act 3. The light restored. Snow fell softly over Maple Hollow as Christmas Eve reached its golden hour. The square glowed brighter than ever before, the air filled with laughter, song, and the scent of roasted chestnuts drifting from the cafe. For the first time in years, every window sparkled, every door was open, and every heart felt lighter. Daniel stood with Emma and Michael near the giant pine tree in the center of town. The mayor spoke briefly, his voice carrying over the crowd. "This year," he said, "we almost let the light of Christmas go out. But thanks to a few hearts who refuse to stop believing, that light shines brighter than ever. To the Mercers and to Maple Hollow, may this be a Christmas of faith restored." The applause that followed was soft but heartfelt. Daniel turned to Emma. "Ready, sweetheart?" She nodded. "Always." Together, they flipped the switch. The tree blazed to life. Thousands of tiny white bulbs shimmered through the falling snow, casting their glow over the town square. The brass band began to play "O Holy Night," and voices joined in first softly, then stronger, until all of Maple Hollow was singing. Michael leaned close to his brother. "You did it, Dan." Daniel shook his head. "We did it." As the crowd began to disperse, Daniel looked across the square. There, near the church steps, stood Gabriel once more. His coat caught the light of the tree, his face warm with quiet pride. Daniel approached, heart full. "You kept your promise," Gabriel said softly. "Not just to your daughter or your brother, but to your town. You helped them believe again." Daniel smiled. "I didn't think I could. Not after everything." Gabriel looked up at the glowing tree. Faith doesn't come from knowing how. It comes from choosing to try, even when the light seems gone. Emma ran up beside her father, eyes wide. "Mr. Gabriel, you came back." He smiled down at her. "I told you once, Emma angels never really leave. We just wait until we're needed again." She beamed. "Then you'll come next Christmas too." Gabriel's eyes twinkled. "If the promise is kept." Emma frowned thoughtfully. "Which promise?" "The one that says hope never really disappears," he said. "It only hides until someone lights the way." Then, before their eyes, Gabriel began to fade his outline, softening into the shimmer of falling snow. "Goodbye," Daniel whispered. Gabriel's voice lingered in the air like the last chord of a hymn. "Not goodbye, Daniel. Just carry on." That night, the Mercer family walked home beneath the stars. The streets glowed with candles, in every window small, steady flames that danced like golden hearts in the dark. At home, Emma placed the brass snowflake on the mantel beside their stockings. "He'd like that," she said. Daniel nodded, wrapping an arm around her shoulders. He would. Outside, a single star streaked across the sky, its light spilling over Maple Hollow. And somewhere, perhaps in the echo of the bells, perhaps in the hush of the snow, came the faintest whisper. Every promise kept brings another light to the world. Epilogue. A year later, Maple Hollow had changed. The factory reopened, the choir grew larger, and the town's Christmas Eve festival became its proudest tradition. Every December, Daniel, Michael, and Emma led the tree lighting not out of duty, but out of gratitude. And in the window of Gabriel's garage, the brass snowflakes still hung glowing warmly, no matter how cold the winter got. Because some promises don't fade. They shine brighter with every soul they touch. The end. Afterward, the light that remains. Every story in Maple Hollow began with a simple promise, one made in faith, kept in love, and remembered in kindness. From Daniel Mercer's first Christmas of redemption, to the healing between brothers, to the faith restored across an entire town, each promise lit another lantern against the dark. And so, these tales remind us that miracles aren't always grand. Sometimes, they're found in the smallest of gestures, a word forgiven, a heart reopened, a light left burning in the window for someone to find their way home. As the final snow falls and the last page turns, the glow remains not on the paper, but in the reader who believes that even the quietest hope can shine forever. Where are they now? A Maple Hollow epilogue. Snow drifts softly along the rooftops of Maple Hollow, as if the town itself is still dreaming of all the Christmases that shaped it. Time has moved forward, but gently, like a lantern carried through the dark without disturbing the flame. This is what became of the people who once carried the Christmas promise. Sarah Mercer, Sarah, once weighed down by grief and uncertainty, is now the quiet keeper of the town's heart. She runs the Lantern House Cafe, the cozy shop she restored with Michael years ago. Locals say her peppermint cocoa heals more than the cold, that Sarah puts a bit of her soul into every cup. She remains Maple Hollow's steady light, the one who remembers your birthday, the one who organizes Lantern Night, the one who places mittens on the old iron fence for anyone in need. Sarah laughs more now. Her eyes hold gratitude instead of ache. Every Christmas Eve, she still steps outside at midnight, closes her eyes, and whispers a thank you into the falling snow. Emily Mercer. Emily is no longer the uncertain girl who once feared losing her family. Now, in her 20s, she works as an elementary school music teacher right in Maple Hollow, a choice she made without hesitation. Her students call her Miss Emily Bright because she always wears something red or gold and insists that every child has a song waiting inside them. She inherited Sarah's kindness and her father's resilience. Children adore her, and so does the town. On the last day of school, before winter break, she gathers her choir on the town hall steps. Their voices rise like gentle snowflakes across Maple Hollow, carrying hope into every window. Michael, once a wandering soul searching for belonging, now feels as rooted as the oldest oak in Maple Hollow. He runs his own woodworking shop, crafting everything from porch swings to hand-carved nativity sets. People swear they can feel something sacred in his work, though Michael always humbly shrugs it off. He and Sarah remained close through the years. Some say love grew there quietly, like a candle warming a cold room. Others say Michael never really left the Mercers, not in spirit, not in heart. He still fixes whatever's broken: doors, fences, hearts, and hopes. He never asks for thanks. Clara Mercer, little Clara, who once brought magic to the trilogy simply by believing, is now in her teens, but her wonder remains untouched. She volunteers at Maple Hollow's winter market, selling handmade ornaments shaped like stars, lanterns, and snowy houses. Every ornament has a tiny painted heart somewhere on it, a signature only she knows to place. Clara believes Maple Hollow is alive, breathing, watching, guiding. Perhaps she's right. Mayor Thompson, still the mayor after all these years, no one ever runs against him. He remains the guardian of Maple Hollow's traditions. His hair is whiter, his smile kinder, and his speech is longer. He established the Maple Hollow Community Fund, which helps families during hard winters. The town says he runs it with the same enthusiasm he once used to light the big Christmas tree. He insists he'll retire one day. No one believes him. Gabrielle. And what of the man with the gentle eyes? The traveler who appeared when Maple Hollow needed him most. Gabriel hasn't been seen in years, but his presence lingers everywhere in the moment a stranger holds a door. In the warmth of a porch lantern left burning late. In the hush that fills the air just before the first snowflake falls. Children whisper that he becomes the wind that rings the old chapel bell. Older folks say he walks the winter roads, guiding those who are lost. Sarah believes he still visits, just not in ways anyone would expect. Maple Hollow, today. The town is brighter now, not because of its garlands or wreaths, but because of its people. They kept the promise. Every lantern lit, every kindness offered, every hand extended, is another reminder of the magic that once touched the Mercer family and then spread through everyone else. Christmas in Maple Hollow isn't just a season, it's a way of living. A final note: ask anyone in Maple Hollow how the town became such a place, and they'll smile and tell you a story, a quiet one, full of ordinary people who chose love over bitterness, forgiveness over fear, and hope over doubt. And then they'll say what everyone here knows: the Christmas promise wasn't just kept, it keeps us. Created in November 2025.